procure your necessary muffin repository by visiting us at utilitymuffinlabs.com, on Facebook at Utility Muffin Labs, on Twitter at 25 Years of VTM or Utility Muffins, all one word, on Instagram at Utility Muffin Labs, one word. Support the labs on Patreon at patreon.com/25 Years of Vampire the Masquerade, and finally, adorn your human form with our t-shirts at tpublic.com/users/Utility Muffin Labs. Utility Muffin Labs, think homogenous. You are now listening to the NerdWords podcast, brought to you by utilitymuffinlabs.com. If you know your party's extension, please dial it now. Press 1 for customer service. Press 2 for podcasts. Press 3 to check on an order. Press 4 to eat it man.
Thanks for showing up tonight. Thanks for being in your perhaps first episode of a podcast.
Yeah.
Hooray!
See the enthusiasm.
Right.
His intent.
Hooray.
And the peasants rejoice.
Oh, this is a podcast again?
I'm going to mute you so fucking hard. All right. You let me know when Nick is ready to, stop acting a fool and I'll unmute him.
And you might as well just throw him out.
I was going to say, just kick him out.
Stop that.
All good. So,
Behave.
so we're here to talk about a year of Curse of Cain. So, this is going to be a weird kind of disjointed podcast. Don't worry about it, guys. Just, talk as you see fit and I'll figure it out on the back end. It's all good.
Nate likes figuring out the back end.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
He was talking about butt stuff, yeah.
So anyways, here's a better question. Who in this room here has been playing a character for a year? The same character.
Same character?
Yes. Same character?
Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody.
Not me.
No, that's not true. Jeff has been playing Romeo Giovanni for a year.
Oh, well, he became an NPC when I joined staff, so that doesn't count.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fair enough. It's the closest we have to a full year-long character that's existed since day one.
Mike, you're still on character 1, yeah?
Technically, yep. But I joined in like August or September.
That's close
on
enough.
a full year.
Yeah, that's close enough. The only thing you missed was all the Anarch stuff.
Right.
It was great, man. It was a great movement.
Was being the operative term. I see.
Yeah. It was pretty nice being an anarch.
What was nice about being an Anarch? I'm curious. I'll bite.
It's for me, the question?
For anybody.
For anybody,
absolutely.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. We had a bunch of anarchs at that time. People were good to interact and do some shit. We had no law. It was nice. This is bossy Prince right now.
Was there always a Scourge? I'm curious.
No.
No.
Was it? There was. If you're curious, yes, there always was. He did not magically appear one night.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have been invited in from out of town in response to an event or something. I was just wondering.
No, there always was.
I was going to say, Scourge is always pretty much always present. You just, most of the time, don't know about him. And that's how it's supposed to be.
I was going to say that is the idea.
Okay. One thing that I really enjoyed at that time was that we could meet a whole gang of people to interact, and there was no concerning about anything about Camarilla, something like that. We used it to go to Taste LA and talk a lot of shit. Sometimes fight with some crazy Assamite dudes. Sometimes rock some concerts. It was nice.
So you're saying all the Anarch camaraderie was what you enjoyed?
Yes, for sure. It was nice.
So my question is, do you remember what happened that caused that to change?
Taste of LA wouldn't stop getting shot up on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Now, was that due to player stuff? Like, was that plot that somebody ignored until?
Oh no, that was players being players.
Yeah, why am I not surprised? Why am I not surprised?
There was a Malk barony at that time. also. But I believe the end up of everything just resumed by players being players.
Yeah, I think that most of the things that occurred and most of the major changes at the beginning were pretty much all player driven. Like Bob and I, we had plot ironed out.
And Anarchs wiped their ass with.
Yeah.
It's player's choice. I mean, I ain't mad about it, but
Right.
I remember.
Right.
There's a lot of, hang on a second, we got to go talk.
Well, yeah, if you remember, there was a little bit of an issue with the Giovanni at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then there was perhaps a confusion of identity that another player who isn't currently present, but is still playing in a different capacity, may have decided to take their aggressions out on that confusion, on that individual. And it seems like from there it was all bad news.
Who are you referring to, though? I mean, just for people listening to this later, too.
So I'm referring to KK.
That's why you were stepping lightly. Understood.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I remembered a time where some old Kaitif decided to jump with a car.
Oh yeah, double located.
And for posterity, if you are hearing this, I have this accent and I speak like Yoda because I'm dumb. I'm sorry.
What?
What?
It's ridiculous.
Oh,
Something wrong with it.
Who is the Caitiff? The Caitiff that jumped with the car, was that Jackdaw?
No,
that was Sebastian.
Sebastian.
It was a reet.
Jackdaw was the reason I think most Anarchs decided to convert.
Because I remember right before I came into the game, people were talking about, or I should say, right when I came into the game, there was talk about like a crash, and multiple people had to change their face.
Oh no, that wasn't him. That was me at Delhi.
Okay. All right.
That's when we rolled into Inglewood as our Giovanni, and I decided to pull a shotgun on Tookie. And then it was definitely a bold move. I was told to send a fucking message, and I did what Romeo do.
It was a Bonnie and Clyde moment.
Collect several rounds is what happened.
Yes, I caught the several rounds in my face, and when I woke up, I was hungry, and there were other people in cars, and my ghoul was dead. So we basically, Deli's character Helena and I basically had a blood orgy with my dead ghoul. And then later we woke up in the morgue.
Doing what you gotta do.
All in all,
was a
really showing that they were prepared to join the Sabbat later in the game.
So this is a tryout. This was a tryout is what this was.
It wasn't a tryout, it was more like a signal.
There was a time where the Amalk decided to confront an Archon, no?
What was that?
I believe there was a time where Gwen decided to fight against an Archon.
I think she may have, yeah. She got real
yeah.
What's
she was pretty crazy.
What's the right word for reckless? Drunk with power?
Britches?
Yeah.
I believe it's called Eye of the Storm.
It wasn't what she was supposed to be at the beginning, but that's what she became.
And let's define Eye of the Storm. That's things happen around you. When you are causing them, that is not Eye of the Storm.
And when that things happen, for every fucking night that you are on, maybe we have some problems.
Well, the funny thing about it is
night she was on, she was doing some messy around.
She definitely was directly or indirectly responsible for a number of different scenarios that unfolded.
Yeah.
So I guess what we can do, and we'll reserve the right to answer or to decline. But I guess if you guys have questions about like plot things or maybe things that you were never quite sure why things happened, if you guys want to ask questions about stuff, go right ahead. Again, though, I have to emphasize, especially for Bob, if there's like ongoing plot related stuff that prevents us from answering questions, we'll refrain. But otherwise, if you guys have questions about like what's happened over the last year, just let them fly, and we'll answer them as we can give you the answer.
And I gotta add, you gotta know how much respect for this that Nate has. I'm doing this in protest. It's distinctly, I've always had the opinion that to encourage plot is to keep your storytelling style, thus your stories that weren't followed, to the wayside.
Right.
And I do that because eventually someone may rekindle that plot. But
Yeah, I mean,
in the interest of being able to let stuff go and to follow the vision that Nate has, and I totally agree with it, it's good to have questions.
Right.
It's good to be able to have that closure maybe you didn't have.
yeah, and I again reserve the right if there's still like ongoing plot stuff that Bob is handling. I'm not gonna. Neither of us will let you know. Like we're not gonna answer that.
The three of us.
And Jeff. Well, that's the thing. Like for a lot of that early stuff, Jeff wasn't on staff, so Jeff
I
knows
just ran
now.
feedings. I literally wasn't privy to anything. I ran feedings for y'all, and that was it. No story, no nothing. I was unaware of everything.
Hell, Jeff still doesn't know certain things, and he's on staff.
Now, why is that? I wonder.
Valid question, even though in jest. It's how I run it. I believe that if you're on staff with me, I'm the head storyteller, that's great. But there's favorite NPCs anybody always has. I truly don't have a favorite NPC. You kill any NPC, yes, it's sad he's gone, but there's always more in the workshop, so to speak. And usually, as a player, that's a victory for you in whatever goal capacity that is. And I don't want to bring in someone that suddenly I got rid of the big bad, now there's another one. That's not how I roll. I like staff to have fun is with the short version. And Romeo, he was a player first, Jeff was. And when he came up on staff, that's still his NPC. Right? I will never play him because there will be story involving him I just won't talk about. Because there were goals and objectives he was pursuing. I already wrote the story for that. I'm not going to reveal it to him just because he's on staff, because he may be involved as a member of a scene with other players. And I want him to have that little break if that comes about. It's a goodwill gesture, so it's not all slave work. I'm a pretty hard guy to work for.
Although I am very much in the same mentality as Bob and Nate. Romeo was cool. He was my PC and everything. But if something were to happen to him, if he were to die, don't ever think I'll be mad about it. He's an NPC. He fulfills a purpose. Even as a PC, you can ask Bob. As long as a death to any of my characters makes sense, I'm never mad that a character died. Because I know that I've done all I could with that character and made the story entertaining. And usually my deaths are just as entertaining as whatever story I was running. So it's good times. It's good times.
Apparently I walked in at the right time. Character death?
I summoned you with the talking.
All right, Joe. Joe, can you do me a favor? Can you just give us a rundown of how many characters you've played in the game?
Yeah, I started playing Curse of Cain, and the first character I had, his name was Albert, and he was a Malkavian that
Charles.
was waffling. Oh yeah, Charles actually. It started with Charles, but he turned into Albert. There's a whole story back behind that, but you'll have to find all that information out in game. And then after Charles, I swapped over to the Sabbat side and played a character named Ryan for a couple of weeks before we got day raided by the SWAT team for some reason. I'm not exactly certain what brought that all about. I never quite found that out. We got day raided, and then when we went to go feed after the day raiding, fed in the wrong location and got into another fight with a whole nother Sabbat pack, and they smoked us. Well, some of us. So that was character 2. Then I made Mac, and Mac lasted quite some time. I enjoyed playing. He was a Bruja that was a socialite, which was slightly different than what you would normally see from Bruja. And things went south when he went to a Rye of KK, They didn't see eye to eye because he whammied her on the first night they met. And
What's a whammy?
Yeah.
Joe, I know that's a Curse of Cain urban dictionary type thing, but what is a whammy for those listeners?
for those that are listening, whammying someone is when you utilize your presence to make them your best friend, either via majesty or, in my particular case, I used entrancement, which is an ability that allows you to. Someone will fall madly in love with you. They will be you will be their entire world for however long it lasts. And when I rolled for the particular ability, I had like four or five successes, making her completely and totally in love with me for, I believe the timeline was about a month. And that's a problem when she was involved with a psychopath. So the first scene that I ever read of KK's, her and a character that's an NPC named Juggler went to Inglewood and decided to shoot up a donut shop. Why? Because it sounded like it'd be a good time. And then they reveled in the blood and the death. My character didn't know that, but when my character met her, there was a big fight that broke out, and she was the center of it, and I was trying to get her to leave. And in my infinite wisdom, I decided that getting her to leave would be simpler if she just would love me and do anything I said. So I entranced her, told her to get the hell out of here, which she did, and that calmed the situation down, but it brought on a world of pain for my character, and it took quite some time for the whole thing to resolve itself. But she ended up beating my ass in an alleyway, staking me, and leaving me out in the sun.
Yeah, I mean, it took about a month.
No.
Oh no, yeah.
No,
It took quite longer than a month. It started at a month.
That was my
probably about a 4-month thing, if not more.
That was my attempt at a joke. But I mean, it's fair. Not all of them hit, you know.
And I'm currently playing a character whose name is Handsome Pete Velasquez, who is a Nosferatu, and that's the current character that I have going on right now. He's a fixer of sorts. People have problems, they come to him, and he sees if he can sort out their problems for them. So it'll be interesting to see how he dies, considering he's already caused normal problems for people and gotten books for people who probably shouldn't have gotten books.
Well, you know, not to like revel in your turnaround, your character turnaround, but you have played a number of characters, all of which have left very important plot points in the game with their absence. So, thank you, Joe. If we were handing out awards, you would get one.
Woohoo! No, I love awards. And in all honesty, the character deaths all make sense as far as the story goes, and that's really what it matters to me the most. As long as it makes sense as far as the story. When Charles got smoked at the very beginning, I didn't want him to die. I was really enjoying that particular character.
He was ritually sacrificed to a South American deity. I'm just saying.
Exactly. It made perfect sense on how the character ended up dying. And how I lost control of said character. Charles was very, very fun, and his sacrifice was epic. And the aftermath of everything after his sacrifice is still felt today in Curse of Cain, which is, it's awesome to see the ripples and how one action or one decision and how it can continue to affect the game even a year later. And we played almost on a daily basis.
All right. So now that you've gone through the list of characters, do you have any questions about things that occurred with those characters?
No, I pretty much know exactly why and how each one of them died. Ryan was the one that really I didn't get my feet too wet into, because I think he lasted a total of 3 weeks before the SWAT team came and caused all kinds of problems. But I think that had more to do with the other members of the Sabbat pack that I was trying to ingratiate myself with than something I personally did, which that happens at the Sabbat.
I don't know. Did you see the way you dressed?
I
Just
will
like
say
firing
how he died was pretty ironic to what he was.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was a fireman and in life, and then kind of went with that whole aspect and, undeath.
You
And
can
then
tell.
ended up getting, pretty much staked with a
Road flare.
Road flare.
You could
Yeah,
tell
which
he was
caught
a
him-
fireman because of his washboard abs.
Different guy.
Yeah,
No, that was-
no,
that was the guy.
the fireman with the washboard abs. That was Nick doing all of that stuff. The guy was just a normal looking firefighter.
I didn't do
Washboard
it.
abs.
I never posted one
Washboard
picture of
abs
him.
was Mac, and Mac was way too good looking for his own good.
Let's be real. Mac was a stripper. Probably a professional one. Probably made good money.
So, but no, I don't have any questions about why any of that happened. But the fact that I've gone through so many characters, I don't know if I hold that as a badge of honor, but it definitely gives unique insight on how the hows and whys characters die.
Would you like to know?
Sure, I'd love to know.
So we'll do the big rivalry first. What you did with that is you drove a wedge between the Anarchs, the Brujah Anarchs, that they're kind of the flagship clan for Anarch period. That's anywhere you go. It's usually majority Brujah. There's a reason for that. The rebellious clan, the clan that wants to change the world, Anarchy fits. Mac was on the side of the Camarilla. KK was representing the Anarchs. When they fought, none of the Brujah idealists agreed with it, and both of you had different meetings with the Permagin who was respected on both sides of the fence, which is Dr. Stemek. And he tried to counsel both of you, and you wouldn't have it. What resulted in was a gigantic clan meeting where the Brujah were going to try to bury that, and then once again, you and KK had antics come in, and there were people on both sides of that fence led right to war and destabilized the unity that clan had. So that's one legacy that was left. And you were there. I mean, obviously you were there. You know how it went. But that's really what happened. And when he disappeared, and when the Anarchs found out that he disappeared into nefarious means, it had nothing to do with the Camarilla, that KK had walked into the Camarilla territory, found Mac, and took him. That may be a pen in her cap for job well done, but it told every Brujah unity means shit.
Right.
And her sire, Crispus Attucks, that was the blow that pretty much sank the ship for the Anarchs in LA, as far as the Brujah were concerned, to having that big push, big backing, because now they had to fall back to their own gangs, because it's the only people they could trust at that point. So that clan unity just fell apart, and I hope that opens up the eyes for for Silva, understanding how that went. It wasn't entirely just a single incident; it was a series of it, and that was a pretty big powder keg that occurred. And then you have Ryan and the Sabbat. You're very much true. When you joined that pack had been sort of feeling out what they were, because they formed from a ragtag group of kind of people hanging out who decided they were going to be a pack together. As happens, right? Shovelheads who survived kind of get to the city. They meet Muhammad, the bishop of LA, and they see just the glory that guy has, running the streets, king of shadows. And one of the members of it, Doc, wanted to make a name. And their Ductus Aza Salubrianti tribu decided, hell yes, we'll make a name. How they chose to make that name was the Grabizamis, who his mother still misses him.
He does.
Calls all the time. And they just fed, and they fed recklessly. They fed as Sabbat do, especially when they're young. And one of the consequences the Sabbat often runs with is that hunters are usually on Sabbat packs anyway. That's just going to happen. Now, it may not have been the Frog Brothers, may not have been Project Twilight, but you bet your ass the police want to know who went and harassed a bunch of ne'er-do-wells on a bridge that locals used to walk across and feed on some ice cream when they killed the family in a parking lot. And let's just say that pack was not big on covering tracks. So by the time you joined it, yes, it was a day raid that went, stuff went south. We'll just put it that way. And then, what else? You have, you do believe you mentioned how he died was, the staking with the road flare and all that stuff. It was not another Sabbat pack. I just want to make that clear. That is a Bradovich family who had broken away from the Sabbat and were hiding out in LA, serving whoever would do two things: give them blood and help them preserve their family and their way of life. And there were no Sabbat who even were aware that they were in that area. And they had a good thing going. They're in a neutral territory. They assigned feeding nights that certain clients could be there, and they covered up the feeding. You were there, you fed, you frenzied, didn't frenzy. someone overdosed, whatever the case was, this crew went in and cleaned it up. If it was your first time feeding, that was your freebie. Once that freebie was done, though, you come back, you call the number, they'll assign you a day, you will pay them. And you'll pay them in blood or money. And that pack wasn't having it. I believe, in fact, it was said, fuck them, they're mortal. And we found out what that meant. And we found out what that meant.
It means that you get staked with a road flare.
They roll hard in Remnant families.
And have your brains eaten.
And the final one was Charles.
Oh, we don't talk about him.
No.
Mm-mm. We don't talk about him.
You gotta.
No.
You gotta.
I don't. Well, I can talk about Charles Hines. Charles Hines was a nice pottery maker, dutiful father, loving family member who tragically got embraced and was a Malkavian. Had to leave his family behind. That's about as much as we'll talk about Charles Hines. I mean, he's that. His alternate persona, Albert, is someone you guys still know and love. Beautiful Camarilla member. Great time.
Absolutely. And the worst part about Charles was that his two children, Gwen and Envy, they both ended up dying too, and that's just, it's horrible for.
You mispronounced loathe, Bob.
Oh, I did. That was my fault. My fault.
Well, I mean, he's gone on to greater glories.
To Waldo.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
What greater honor is that than that?
What greater honor indeed. Yeah, I don't know. I remember running that scene and I was like, does Joe understand what's going to happen here?
All I remember is him laughing maniacally.
Me?
No, Joe.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, me. I was laughing maniacally because it made sense for everything that was going on with the character to embrace his brother.
I have a question.
Yes, of course.
It's more OOC, but how much time are you investing on this today? Because I believe that there is a big amount of effort involved on that.
Well, so let me articulate a little bit. So you asked how much time are we investing today? Do you mean literally just today, or do you mean like individually as staff members or?
Yeah, and staff members and generalist way speaking, because I believe it's a huge work what you are doing right now, and then everyone is looking at me. Let me hide here. I believe there is a lot of work to do, and I remember talking with you when you begin that, and you told me that you would invest some time and would make it happen, but how is today?
Well, for most of this, I'm going to let Bob address that, but the way that it kind of breaks down now is that I pretty much handle all the podcast related stuff, like the recording, the editing, all the website stuff. Like I'm kind of like I'm the creative guy, but not the game creative type of stuff. And when we first started, it was Bob and I doing the storytelling, and I think we maybe underestimated how demanding it would be, but we are nothing if not able to adapt. Right, we're very adaptable.
I agree with that.
So as far as like the actual game is concerned, I personally devote very little time or effort to it. And in fact, for those of you who are in here who don't know, I act as a player. Right, I have a player character. Healing? What's that?
That's what the little RB thing about him.
I'm strictly a player, so I have a player character, and I devote a couple hours a week to playing that character, just as much as any player would. But for me, I devote part-time to low-end full-time job amount of time to the podcasting as a whole. So to CurseOfCane.com, UtilityMuffinLabs.com, the Curse of Kane game, the 25 Years of Vampire the Masquerade. So my time is devoted solely to that. As far as the other end, that would be Bob, and he can probably speak to that a little bit better than I can.
So when Nate and I talked and that split was happening, it's because you need one you need one head ST who's going forward with the plot, because it was a case where Nate would try to come on and get caught up with what was done, and or he would run something and I'd need to be caught up, and we were spending more time in meetings discussing what was done than just going forward and keeping everyone entertained. And that was a stress point because it's too much lag.
Right.
Just to say it. So Nate came up with the idea because he was already on the social media anyway, and fielding those questions. And I would hear about it. We'd handle it back and forth a little bit, but he's the first point of contact for most people in a world sense, and hearing about Utility Muffin Labs. But Curse of Kane is a lot of our patrons, and that's there. And you guys required at least one of us dedicated, just there. And I kind of raised my hand with it. We knew we could trust it. I'd done a LARP with 100+ people, and did that just me. So here online, I think all of you understand that. Where you may think that's daunting, you haven't even taxed me yet. And that's not bragging. You can talk to DJ and Jeff and understand that the amount of work I put into it and have set up, a lot of you guys are learning. A lot of you are coming back from years off and are looking at Vampire with new eyes. Most of you are fans of podcast. I'd say all of you. And because of that, you're right. Your brain's jogging with different ideas and stuff to try, and different things to do. And because of that, you're more than giving me enough time to sit back and prepare for what you want to do. And that makes it easy. When you guys are driven and somebody's just like on every day and they're just going to hit it and go for it. The cool thing is we're all adults. Everybody respects that, I have a life, and so does the staff. But that's why we have the set days we do. And then there are off days. A lot of you just get together and role play with each other that you believe we may or may not view. I know that viewpoint used to be that we don't pay attention to the scenes. You're wrong. Jeff is diligent. So is DJ. So often when we get meetings, I'll get updates about what goes on. And if something really interesting happens, some of you sneaky players like to send me direct messages. I believe my favorite startup is, Bob, you may find this interesting, ... And then there'll be this interesting dialogue in a room to go to. And that helps as well. So I would say collaboratively, this is even easier than what I was doing, not only for the note taking, but because people understand just how hard this must be. So it makes it easy to do.
And also to give you a little bit more of an insight as well, as far as how much work we put in, we talk every day about Curse of Kane. We are always talking about plot, what's going on with specific characters, how we're going to roll new plot out, how it ties to the main meta plot. Like it's a constant thing. We are always talking about Curse of Kane.
Yeah, I think that one of the big things about this game, and I think most people know that, like Bob and I, we didn't have online gaming experience in this capacity before we started this, right? We had a vision and a concept that we wanted to, offer to people who are fans of our podcast. And, we were like, oh, well, hey, we're doing a vampire podcast. People want to know, what it's like to play in one of our games. Let's just offer that as a reward, right? And I think, like, at the very beginning, what was very important for us was, like, we are charging money, but like we're charging money because you support us, and this is what we're giving you in return, sort of like as a, we're not charging you for the game, but like there is some monetary value involved. And I think what a big deal for me was, I have that thing that a lot of like quote unquote artistically minded people have, which is I move forward with a degree of integrity, right? Like, this is, I'm giving you my heart and soul. And when we started to receive like pushback from certain players, I don't mind criticism, but when in a storytelling sense, when I'm questioned as a storyteller and I'm like, wait a minute. So needless to say, there were some issues that I was having, and I was like, I need to take a step back because it's a level of distraction that I feel is pulling me from why we even offered this in the first place, and that was a podcast, right? I want to focus on that. And I think that for Bob and I, it really broke down well that Bob is handling the Curse of Cain stuff because he does have like such a, just a deep well of LARP experience and like tabletop experience and dealing with hundreds and hundreds of people. And I'm kind of a surly asshole when I'm put on the defensive. And so I don't ever get that way now because I'm not on staff. Right. And honestly, our input podcast wise in 99 out of 100 occurrences is all like positive or, at least asking questions about stuff that we're talking about. And so I don't have to get surly because no one's like, your podcast fucking sucks. Because I will slap you if you say that. Like to me, that's not, that's not like a criticism of the podcast. That's just like you being shitty. And Bob has had so many years of like corporate management experience that I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier for him, but he's just better equipped at dealing with that and sort of like, compartmentalizing it, not taking it personally. Whereas like the kind of, like the social media stuff, I'm a little bit, I think, more equipped to deal with and just let it roll off my back.
He is, and to give Nate a break, the insight about social media, that's where I get cut to the quick, because that's not out of character. I mean, that's not in character. Excuse me. That's not relating to a game. There are people who have gotten. I'm certain there's more than I know of, where because I'm the type of person. If what we do, your opinion is it sucks or it's terrible, you have the intellect to communicate exactly what we're doing wrong or what could be improved.
Right.
And stated as such, we're willing to receive that info.
Right.
But if you're just trolling and you want to throw it down, that's why I'm not on social media.
And I think that to a major degree, we're not big enough yet to attract like really shitty, overtly shitty nerds who are going to be like, shitty for the sake of being that way. But occasionally it does happen. And, I have a very like even keel when it comes to that stuff. But if we get someone who comes into the game, and this has happened, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but when we get somebody who comes into the game and they start to like become disruptive or they insult someone on staff, like everybody here that's on staff, Bob, Jeff, and even Chris to a certain degree, like Chris has been with us since essentially day one of this podcast, right? And so
I definitely have loved you guys.
Right.
Our two big, and I got to say this, our two biggest fans who kept us going, got us going in the beginning with the ideas and what to do, and just were literally there with us every step was HH and DJ.
Right.
Those are like two of the biggest that were with us, and that's much love. That honestly fueled us.
And
I gotta
thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And I gotta state,
say thank you. I'm sorry, Bob, but one thing that must be clear is, guys, you do a very amazing job for a whole year for us. So I think I speak in the name of everyone when I say thank you.
You're welcome.
More than welcome. You're more than welcome.
But my point is, when someone decides that they're going to insult one of those people, I will come right at you. I have no patience and I will not excuse anyone. And that's part of the reason why I've always tried to emphasize, like, this isn't just a game where we're like, give us $15 and you can play. This is something like that requires so much time and effort to create plot and to create something that's like believable and interesting and kind of keeping people, engaged for a full year of essentially what breaks down to everyday role playing. That is a difficult process. And since we created this Discord, since we started the game, I've gone and I've looked at like other role playing servers and I've gone, oh, there isn't actually like a story or a staff engaging the players, right? There isn't like a plot that people are creating. It's just like, come to this place and pretend to be a vampire. And so that's where I understand when someone's like, oh, pay to play, I don't want to do that. I'm like, just listen to the podcast, right? If you like the podcast and you like what we do, you should back us and you get this as a reward. And hey, if it sucks at least the podcasts are still good, right? So, like for me, that's where my focus is. My focus has always been podcasting, and just the degree of like doing that, and also trying to do this overwhelming Curse of Cain game just was a little much for me. So, anyways, all credits to Bob, who I think is kind of like naturally like built for this type of scenario.
Well, thank you very much, man. But it's still a team effort.
Right.
DJ and Jeff help amazingly, and you still do too, Nate. You just don't participate if it's a bot based.
Right.
But also, I do want to add something distinct about me. I think anybody who joins us in this in UML period, there's a defensiveness me and Nate naturally have to external naysating and negativity, and that's because you can say whatever you want about me and Nate. We're grown ass men. We don't. That's fantastic, dude. Whatever. It's water off a duck's back. When you say it about one of our players or our patrons or our community, that's the line. And to that's where it comes from, because we're extremely sensitive about all of you. We know how courageous it is to step into something that's new. For a lot of you, you haven't done something like this, and to step into that with that trust really it honors us, and it gives us that refreshing challenge we originally did when we were storytellers for the first time. And why we were good back then, you didn't have a bunch of people staring at you seeing what you do. But I got to tell you, there's even more, like other than this room, there's even more people who are on this server, and patrons included, who don't participate in the game, but they read the scenes.
Right.
They comment and applaud. They see what you guys do. And I've had the comments, they went to their game to try it. There were characters made off of character Gwen played by my Shadowstar. They liked what she did. That liked the whole aspect of being that Anarch who didn't have to be a Molotov chucking Anarch to actually do something and get that moving forward. And Shadow, that's like your first time playing like a vampire character, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've never played the game before June 1st of last year.
Right, and now you are what I would call a veteran, right? You've had the absolute highs and the absolute lows. One thing that I really want to make a point of in this podcast is like, not only has this been a really cool learning experience for Bob and I as far as like creating a game, but like it's introduced us to all of these people who a year ago, we didn't know, and we've created friendships. Like, people come here and like there's not one person in here where I'm like, maybe that person should go. Like, these are like everybody that's in this room. Except Pay. I would say I was friends with Pay before, and now I really just don't care for him as a person.
As long as he brings the guacamole.
All right, you're on for guac. Okay, Pay?
Right.
Come on, give the man a chance. He's a nice.
No. Nick is awesome. And but what I'm really getting at is that it's not only just like created an environment where I feel people can come and not have to fear about role playing a character or any of that stuff, but also they can be themselves and create relationships, and like we get to meet these people in certain circumstances, and we'll be getting to meet more of you later on in the summer. And like, to me, that's awesome, because not only are we just like sharing this hobby, but like we're creating relationships that are true relationships. Like we're all here because we want to be here, not because anybody's forcing us. And I just think that that's really cool.
Amen. Very cool.
So I want you to know what's going on right now, Nate. The reason why they don't want to ask questions about Curse of Cain the game is because I distinctly feel it's because we're listening.
Right.
Right, they're on the hook. If I ask for plot help now, they're going to be like, great. Now he knows. Now he knows what I'm looking into.
Well, here's another cool. Go ahead, DJ. Or go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I have wanted to know for a long time and never even thought to ask, what on earth happened at Disneyland?
Disneyland was awesome. That was one of the best scenes of the early fall.
Like, I'm aware that there was a body involved and that a manhole cover was hucked and like the scourge was there. but I've never gotten details, and I dug, I tried to seek out the story, the lead up, and the scene where all that happened, and I've not been able to find it.
We approved a player to play a character named Reaper, and he has a sire he made in the Sabbat called Harvest. And Harvest, I brainstormed with him about creating this Nodus, Bruhai Anti-Tribu. And Reaper is from Nam. And Harvest was there. And it didn't go the way he had intended. Like, he's a soldier who, since his embrace, he was shoveling and all that, but since he came out of the ground, Harvest has been trying to catch him. Has literally thrown him ahead since Nam and tried to just catch up to him. Just spouting crazy Nodus crap about, you can only use what God's cursed you with. Only Cain will lead you to the road, to the path. Just crazy preachings. And whenever he caught up to him, Harvest would kill everybody around him. Just to prove a point. And when he doesn't know what the point is. So Reaper has learned to not only deal with death, but as he had his character set up, he's in the Sabbat believing the Sabbat are the heroes. That this Harvest guy is part of the problem. People like Harvest, except his first intro that night was running smack dab into Nosferatu plot. And that went with a little radio call. And what had occurred is Morris Hubowitz, who's not here right now, I see, is a very wily player who was living in fear of what dwells in the sewers. Had been there for a while. The LA he knew was teaming with Nosferatu, getting away with Anarch stuff, learning about the new computer technology, how to best use it to ShrekNet, the whole nine. And a couple technomancers were on board, that Path of Techomancy. Messica St. John had visited, talked with these people. Good time to be a Nos. When he got here, he found naught but ashes and clothing. And several spots where they were sleeping. Some mystery he just couldn't figure out, but he knew the whole time he was down in those warrens that he was being watched. So he did what any smart Nos does. He disappeared and never went back down. He just refused to go back down. A couple messages are being dropped to him in character, and he finds that the former Nosferatu Primogen, who, by the way, the camera was ignorant to the fact that he was former, was just known as the Primogen, this Gullion, was hiding out in a cave above ground. And in the sea cave, he had built a typical warren just for him, but had to go to extreme lengths to avoid the main sewer system. And when he found him, he didn't even really ask what was going on. He kind of put two and two together. And he assumed a Nictacu is down in the warrens. That's what happened. None of them could escape. They're all devoured. So Cullion told him, that's your story. That's your truth. And that's fantastic. But after this meeting, we can't meet again. Don't ever come back. And real paranoid promised me the whole nine. And they develop a relationship. Well, one thing leads to another. And Cullion gets false information. He thinks he's getting messages from, of course, the Morris Hubowitz, leading him out to Anaheim. And why is he leading him out to Anaheim? It's not Camarilla turf. There's no sheriff to protect it. There's no border there. It's not even a Sabbat town, so he could fake being some type of way. It's Anaheim. Anaheim's a neutral Anarch barony where a lot of the Anarchs go, and they know one thing. We can feed here, but you can't mess up. It's an unspoken Anarch free stakes rule. If you're in Anaheim, because of the amusement parks and the whole nine, you feed very lightly and you don't fuck with the mouse. That's just how it is. And rowdy Anarchs get tossed by everybody, including their own. Well, at that park, this Nos reveals himself, as you guys now know to be the Scourge, and his sole purpose there was to eliminate Cullion. And it was an NPC scene I had meant to narrate. And that's out of character, and it's a plot that went on. Well, during the video, or the radio cast that he was throwing out for misdirection, and that was Morris Hubowitz's doing, by the way. He had left some pretty smart traps to trick this thing that might be tracking him, and that's how it got caught on the radio itself. And it wasn't them exactly, but it was their influence. This is police talk, chatter, the whole nine. And when that went down, here's Reaper riding across the highway, knowing his sire's not far behind. And what happens is Anaheim erupts in war. You had one Nosferatu who sees his prey who went right at him, and you had Reaper who was sick of elders coming in and trying to annihilate anyone. And after hearing some war-felt shit go over the radio as they believed the soldier he was coming through, as they had some radio chatter, he rolls into Anaheim not thinking and not caring. And when he gets there, he sees this Nas and he threw an oven at him. It was in a kitchen named Matt. I'll spare the detail, but that's how that war erupted. He literally came between two warring factions and just decided he was going to save the one guy who seemed to be a good guy. And during that fight, he knew he was outclassed immediately. And then his sire came later on and had to deal with all the police, and he saw just how psychopathic a Sabbat Nodist is, to the Camarilla chagrin, and the barony of Anaheim was flushed. It just got ended in his opening, which is why I think everybody loved it. It was very epic, and his first night, no one's seen Reaper since that player, which, if I can say it, I really feel that was his opus.
He's just never going to top that.
Like,
So
how
he left.
How do you top it? Starting character comes in, rolls bones with some evil-ass Nosferatu, fighting to a standstill because of police involvement, and gets helped by another Nos to escape, who thanks him. And he's like, great, I did all that, and it was to rescue somebody? And yeah, he finds out Tookie was apparently missing or abducted, and he did something to get him freed, and I'm deliberately being vague about that. And he did, and he came home to Sabbat a hero. Like, that was a win. And everybody cheered him. And then he had to take a step away for a bit.
20 years have passed since a tragic fire at an illegal rave killed over 100 people outside Austin, Texas. But is that all that happened on the night in question? Experience the horror of Vampire the Masquerade like never before. Jackalope LARP and White Wolf present a blockbuster LARP horror event. The Night in Question, November 17th, 2018, Austin, Texas. Jackalope-LARP.com for tickets and information. Where will you be on the Night in Question?
And to your question, Reichland, that was Harvest who got staked by the Sabbat by your Templar at the time, and sent him to Montreal to calm down.
Hey guys, so I just joined. I've been listening to your podcast probably since it started, so I'm a huge fan. And I'm actually legit creating my character right now. And I was wondering, can you guys give me an idea as to what the landscape of the game is that I'm about to jump into 1 year?
That's a lot. I'm actually going to have fun with this. I'm going to let everybody who's in the game do it for you. You have Sabbat, Anarch, and Camarilla right here.
Just don't mess with this Scourge, man.
That
is some solid advice.
The number one rule.
Wait, I think all we need is where's Fang to tell us what we're not supposed to do.
Malibu is a great place for startups. I would highly recommend settling down there.
He's lying to you.
The safest place.
The word he says.
I'm not
the
lying at
safest
all.
place is not Malibu.
So, I mean, if you actually just wanted to get started, we got an entire mechanism already built out for that, which is the new player enrollment section, which kind of goes over the very basics. You may already be familiar with that. If you're looking for ideas as a kind of where to fit your character in the plot line, you can visit the Curse of Cain website. There's a lot of stuff that's already written out there with the basics of what you would know just as a starting character, as in character knowledge. That'll help you formulate a background kind of where you fit in. Otherwise, if you're kind of wondering where's the action happening, and the only true answer to that is wherever you start.
Yeah, plot. You will join the game, right? And you'll be like, okay, this is cool. I'm meeting people and everything's great. I'm having a good time role playing in this new community. And then something is going to hit you in the back of the head real hard. And that is how you will know you've encountered plot.
And I would say too, as a former storyteller, as a former storyteller turned player, some things that I have noticed. It seems on the surface that it's very much a Camarilla primarily game, right? There seems to be a lot of political maneuvering and a lot of not a lot of Anarch maneuvering. However, I know because I'm Nathan, that's bullshit. That's not true. It's just stuff that's not being seen specifically. And it seems as if the Sabbat is a very small force against the Camarilla, but it seems as of tonight that it's kind of a Cold War, right? That's the impression that I would get. It doesn't seem to be like an active conflict between the Sabbat and the Camarilla. The Sabbat seems like a very small, like a boil on the back of the Camarilla, and the Anarchs seem to be sort of scattered about. That's what I would say as a player, like just joining tonight. It seems the Anarch Free States have been dissolved, and what's left is the scattered remnants. Although I've noticed that most of the Camarilla, they don't like to journey into these obvious Anarch camps, so that's probably why that's the case. And the Sabbat seems to have some small yet powerful forces that maybe are waiting for something, or I don't know, they're in a holding pattern. I couldn't tell you, but that's what I would say. That's what I see.
Yeah, and I mean, there's safety in the tower, right? For the most part. If you want to start slow, I came into the game not even really an Anarch, just kind of independent, and that lasted about 6 weeks. Because if you come in as a Camarilla player, you'll find people to socialize with, and you'll learn stuff in character, and there will be things to do, and you won't know you're in an incredible life-threatening danger until you think you're prepared. If you come in on the Sabbat side, you're gonna get to go and do stuff and explore, and it's dangerous like it should be, but you have the pack dynamic. Too. Say what?
Explore and explode.
Yes, there's an increased risk of explosion. So I guess without like going on a diatribe, if you want to just jump right in and do stuff, Sabbat side, do stuff. If you want to play it a little bit slower, get to know more people because the majority of players are on the cam side, start cam side. If you want to be the tip of the spear, become an Anarch.
If you want to make a difference and really affect change in this world, you should play an Anarch. That's my advice.
That is where the opening is from my perspective.
Yeah. And if you want to win the game at the cost of your soul, you can be a Giovanni.
or a caitiff. I mean, I think that works well too.
True.
Yeah. But definitely, like the Giovanni have been sort of this, I don't know, this ever-present little situation that no one wants to talk about.
But that's also the thing, right? So to counteract that and play devil's advocate, the game is really what you want it to be. You play the Camarilla, then most folks end up going Camarilla because, of course, there are more people there. But you're walking into your own slavery. Now you're walking into the hierarchy. Now you're walking to the status quo, and people feel the weight of that on their backs. Sabbat had the same thing happen with them, where they have characters where some go out in a blaze of glory. Some of them are still waiting to make the move, but they feel the tension of the actions to come. And then we have folks, especially like our dear player Danteric, who plays Ryan Kairos, who is doing an exemplary job of playing Anarch. He's caught between a rock and a hard place, but that just goes to show that he doesn't have to tip one way or another. He just has to keep his head above water, and I think that's what makes those three sects at the current moment seem just as spectacular. So depending on what angle you want to play is literally what I suggest you go for. You make the story, right? In the end, it's you make the story. You make your character, and we just tell the story about your character, and you just take it to the hill, and that's exactly where we lead you.
Thanks.
Also, thank you for listening. We're glad that you've been listening since the beginning.
Awesome.
I have one more advice. Go to Malibu in your first night. It's very good.
It's wonderful out here. I have a beautiful house. Come visit. It's all fine.
This guy gets it.
I'll spare you guys the litany of the fallen.
But beautiful wildlife.
Don't forget to walk in a car with the stereo at the loudest sound that you can have. Okay.
Well, there.
I hear the nightclub scene is smoking hot.
Wait, how many nightclubs have we burnt down now?
That's too soon.
Did you say we burned down? I don't think that we as staff have ever intentionally burned down anything.
We as the characters have burned down a couple.
Fuck it, I don't.
Mostly, I'm looking at.
No,
the
that's not true. We burnt down one.
People to blow.
We burnt down one. We intentionally burnt down one. That won't be talked about.
If it helps, it was definitely player driven.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't like we just were like, hey, let's fuck a player. We don't. We have much better ways to spend our days than to intentionally fuck players.
I'm still looking forward to the resolution of Envy's insurance on the club. You know, I want to see a little resolution on that one.
All that red tape, insurance.
Did he ever get his insurance? That's all I want to know.
Well, he definitely.
What I can tell you is, he's got all the insurance he needs right now.
Okay, so is he actually dead, or is he still gimping it up?
As I would put it fondly, death would be the probable resolution that he would be looking for at this moment.
Talking about that, there was one time that Envy's place almost went down because of some mosh pit. Who was the Malk that used passionate that day?
That was Charles. I told you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you won me one. I had to deal with that Ventura.
Yeah, it was very like in the early days. It was very much like the players kind of getting used to the world and kind of like seeing where like the boundaries were, and we kind of already knew.
I think we saw the boundaries and then we kind of blew the boundaries up.
Well, it's very cool for me too, as someone who's partially responsible for getting this whole thing started. It's awesome for me as a storyteller and just as someone who enjoys the game to watch people who started with maybe a limited knowledge or in certain cases like no knowledge at all, like just to watch them grow into players, and it just makes me feel good. It makes me feel good that I've had a participation in making people better at what they enjoy doing.
Oh, you are happy. Very good. It's good to have Nate happy. You won't die if he's happy, probably. Not so easily, at least.
Yep,
I want to know. Is Silva still dumped in old basement, or is he just
What's your first character?
Oh, Silva.
Yeah.
I like him. No, he's not dead. He's not dead. Is he torpid still? Because humanity being what it is, there's time.
Yes.
Yeah, Bob will have to check his calendar.
I have it programmed.
I don't know if you guys know this or not, but because this game is like constantly ongoing, like there's calendar entries, right? Like we've just hit a year. That doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. The alarms go off. Alarms set many months ago, many months ago. So yeah, we definitely don't forget anything.
Plot wise, I want to add that.
Yeah. Plot wise, no, we are much better plot note takers than we are real life note takers. Because I forget shit constantly, all day long, every day. But when it comes to like plot, no, those are things that get written down. There's many OneNotes and notebooks full of stuff.
Well, if I may be so brave, the two of you do a great job of keeping all the shit organized.
Well, thank you, sir.
The power of the cloud. We do. We always 100%, man. That's passion, and it's passion shared. I can't say enough, man. If this was dull with a player group, you couldn't hold me. It wouldn't. I mean, that's weird to say, but absolutely is the truth. If everybody was like kind of blah, and I'm playing this, and I just want to go step in the arena and slaughter someone else, it's like, yeah, great. Get back to me on how that went. Because that's not real storytelling involvement, right? And none of you do that. Not a single one. And for that, I thank all of you. I mean, that just keeps it interesting.
I would like to say that there has been some quite interesting NPCs that I've seen over the year. I definitely have to say that Jesus is a fond one.
Well, thank you.
Don't know how much
Jesus is my
intellectual
homeboy.
craziness going on there.
Jesus is my homeboy.
Well, it's one of my favorite NPC characters to play. So
That whole bar is
We
full
need
of very
more-
interesting characters.
sorry, we need more.
We need more Bella in our lives.
Yes, Bella's another one.
God, every time he is on screen, I am just dying. That character's the best.
I still love the time that he sicked those squirrels and raccoons.
Oh, the hounds, yes. You gotta beware the hounds.
They're the dutiful Roma that defend his estate.
By Bella, I'm sure you guys all mean Cain, the father of us all. The
Well,
progenitor.
actually,
Kane is driving a taxi.
Bella is a canon character, right? Like Bob and I obviously Bob role plays him a lot, and to his credit, he does it as the character was written. But that character's in L.A. by Night. That's a actual classic World of Darkness vampire character.
It's one book I haven't read because I didn't want to get spoiled on anything.
I appreciate that. I think probably Bob and Jeff and Chris all appreciate that because there's something to be said about the wonder of not knowing, right? Like once you know what's in a book, you're always going to be comparing it to what you've read, and you're going to be like, oh, well, that wasn't what I read. That's different. And it kind of screws up your experience because, I would say, hey, the more you can read and the more you can know, awesome. But if you can go without reading a book because you're going to be playing in one that your storyteller's running, you're going to have a better experience, I think, by and large.
There's definitely been a couple times during my nights of boredom where I looked at that book and then had to talk myself out of looking at it again.
What I could tell you is even if you read it, it's
yeah. I mean,
it's like knowing why people meet where and how. It would fill in blanks as to why is that lupine territory and how did we ever meet there and not get torn apart. A lot of that's in there, but you got to remember when the book was written, and we're playing in 2018.
Right. Yeah.
So the updates are there. So is it a spoiler? Yeah, there's some personalities that are still in there you'd read about, and that are there, and that's what more to what Nate is talking about. That would ruin it. But as far as the layout, the land, and why and what's occurred, it's great for a historical viewpoint.
Besides, if the game fell apart very easily just because somebody read a book, I think the problems would be far more pressing and obvious to everyone.
It really can't, because I know there are people in this room who've read the book and know it well, and that's not the point. That's a valid opinion, but the point of that is that it's on the STs to paint a world that you're in, and all the characters that are made right now, PC wise, have altered that environment grossly as to what's there and what's not, because it's about the players. So, for instance, having a place that has Jesus, a bar that people can go to and kind of just take a seat back and be judged by some mortal that you love for some strange reason. That's fantastic, and it's a good spot. They are nowhere in LA. They don't exist anywhere in that book. That's a product straight from Nate. Your Scourge is something unique. Your Prince and your Sheriff, their stat block was made by a White Wolf. Their history and personality I created, and me and Nate spitballed on a lot of motivations for. That's going to be vastly different. So what I'm pointing out is that when you have something like a by night book and you're using, we literally use LA for the example we give in the podcast. It's literally a spine. It's the beginning of the overall body that will be the story in the end, living, breathing, walking around and learning.
Right. I think with any game, it's important to take what's presented, but then to make it your own, right? Make it your own game and add your imagination and your experiences and whatever's going on with your life and present that to your players. And when I say I think it peppers your perspective when you read it as a player, for sure it does, because you're probably going to be looking for specific things, and maybe your storyteller's like, no, we don't want to have that. Maybe we don't want that. But, the beauty part about this is there really isn't a right or wrong answer. There's iffy situations you can paint yourself into, but as far as world telling is concerned, it's whatever you want it to be for the story you're trying to tell.
Throughout this past year of Curse of Cain, what for you guys has been the most entertaining scenes that any of you have been involved in?
Well, maybe we should let Chris and Jeff field this one first. Not to put you guys on the spot, but yeah, if you guys want to get in there and talk about some of that stuff, that'd be pretty cool.
So for me, as a player, because I came from the player side, of course, as it's been probably told before, but for me as a player was definitely the Bella scene where my character was chased by squirrels. That was pretty impactful. I think almost any scene I had with Bella in those particular cases were great because he's so larger than life. But by the same token, this character has survived for such a long time and has such a control over his domain that it's easy as a player to kind of forget just how powerful he is or like how wily this guy is. And then you see it happen and you're like, holy shit, I have to treat him with respect. He's crazy, but I have to treat him with respect. So I've always been blown away by my interactions with Bella. As a storyteller, I think I've had the most fun recently, or at least the one I've gotten the most kick out of, is a character that the three of us as T's were thinking of something special for you guys, especially in Malibu. And I just happened to be surfing on the web and I found an image that caught me. And for those of you who are actively playing, you very well know he who is the gregarious alpaca. And when we stumbled on that, staff knew we had something special on our hands, and then he just came to life. And that gif of him just rollerblading, like actually skating, just it sold us. It was pretty much the best thing that ever happened. And so we figure any interaction with the gregarious alpaca is entertaining to not only staff, but it's entertaining to the players when he comes across.
His creme brulee.
White bitch and creme brulee. This shit is too funny. For me, it's really, I enjoy so much of Curse of Cain, which is why I am always reading and I'm always on. But my favorite has been since we started, and that's running your guys' feeding scenes. A lot of those get so personal and in depth, and gives you insights into your characters and or the things that are happening around you when you're feeding. That I enjoyed immensely. It's probably my favorite thing to do is run feeding scenes. As a player, my interactions with everybody, just because everybody looked at Romeo as like this loudmouth fucking Goomba, basically. And all that changed at a certain point, and no one's asked him about it yet. But everybody still shows him that respect of, he might beat my ass or he may Diablerize me as well. Nobody's really done anything to find out why he's kind of changed a little bit. So
it's kind of what happens when you set the tone.
My favorite scenes to storytell. Obviously, I have a fondness for the LaGrange Inn. Like, that's obvious. That's a no duh. I get to have these like very interesting, kind of incredibly personal scenes with characters. However, my favorite thing to storyteller to be involved in, two scenes. Well, anything involving the poker game. For those of you who have played anyone in the various underworld organizations, anything involving the poker game has always been very entertaining for me. I get a lot of enjoyment role-playing, storytelling, criminal enterprises, right? And so that stuff, it's all very subtle for me. And also the scene with Chris, with DJ, when he was tracking down hunters.
Man.
Because I didn't know how that scene was going to end any more than you did, right? It was really coming down to like what you did.
2 men in a tube. 1 man comes out.
Right. Yeah,
that was oh man, that was. See, now, as I mentioned, that was a funny scene before, right, with Bella. But that scene that Nate is talking about, the TLDR version was my Tremere had a choice to make, and it was either him or them, and he made the choice, and that was harrowing for me as a player. I had anxiety just going through that, but that made for amazing catharsis at the end of the night. I had no idea what was going to happen. I was prepared to resign my character, but I was like, that's part of being a player that you should understand, right? And that's part of that social contract as well that we also have a page for, right? There's a channel for it, whereas you have to trust your storyteller to tell you the story, and you have to trust you as a player to run the character. And my character could have just ended that night, but there were complete consequences to it, but it was harrowing. It was everything you thought that vampire would end up being, just having to deal with everything horror, and that was a very, very harrowing scene for me. And to bring it back, I'm just thinking about it. It was fucking great scene. That was nuts.
That was the one at the house, wasn't it, with the pit that you fell into?
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that one. That was good.
And I emptied out an assault rifle into a mortal just because he was just upset. He was done with having to be pushed around, and unfortunately for that mortal, he just happened to be the punching bag at that moment in time. But then that wasn't even the worst part of it, because once he fell in that pit and he had to deal with another character, he was shown things he probably wished he never saw.
Yeah, one of the things I really enjoy about being a storyteller are small personal revelations, right? Like showing you something that you know you shouldn't see, that you're probably not supposed to be privy to, and now it's a secret you have to either live with or expose, but at what consequence? So anytime you get to experience something as a player where you're like the only one in on the knowledge, that's what I get the most entertainment out of. And I think that has to do with like the poker game, right? And like playing Lowry and like having an individual be privy to like these people that have no knowledge, that don't know the things that maybe you think that they should, yet they're still somehow in power, right? That there's other things going on underneath the surface that you're just now finding out, and you don't know necessarily how to interact or react to it, and having to make those decisions in the moment. I enjoy that as a storyteller.
What and I guess I asked this at the STs, but any player can jump in too. What is the biggest moment of crisis that you guys would say a character has been through? Like big fork in the road, hugely impactful. I guess a death scene wouldn't qualify, but if you had to name the single most pivotal choice that has been made so far, what would that be?
Arit. Hands down, it would be the player that named Arit right now.
What did he? What was the choice? Because I've only seen a few of his scenes.
So you can understand something that White Wolf will have to agree to disagree with me on. The concept of what a caitiff is. It's a bullshit notion. I don't believe in a caitiff. It's ridiculous. A vampire somewhere had to make that vampire. Just because that vampire is not aware of what is in his veins, his blood, does not mean they don't have a weakness, right? And then a product of thin blood says that like your 14, 15 gen, you start losing properties, as good old Net Church has pointed out with their in-game canon. And then I've had to concede that a thin enough blooded person can truly be a caitiff because they lose whatever weakness they had. But even they were embraced by somebody. So keep that in mind.
Right. They kind of break it down to like the genetic caitiff and the caitiff by choice, right? And, you know, I too, like, caitiff comes from somewhere, right? You don't just get to like, I'm a vampire now, so I'm going to take Fortitude and Serpentis and dominate. Like, come on, that's not. But yeah, I'll let Bob finish.
So when it's a good point. But so when I sat down, talked to Tyrus, as you guys may know him as we started, he had this great idea. He's never played Vampire. He's read a little bit for the book. He's a veteran of role playing, but just never done this game of ours. So I was like, great. He gave me this concept, how he was in the Middle East and part of the Iraqi conflict, and he was there, captain of his platoon, or excuse me, captain of his team, and they were sent out to do a mission. And I'll leave it at that for in-game reasons. But he gets all the way back to L.A., and he is the one that jumped his car across traffic to earn the patronage of a baron who he discovered was just an old Ventro. who just is Altark and gets to use his wealth however he wishes. And he respects, apparently, people of just a spine, willing to do whatever it is they choose to do because they will it. And that's Tyrus. That was his character. And good old Ty, about a month later, runs across his sire. His sire, who apparently walked from the Middle East and is not aware what that's a plane, why that's a car, great, another carriage, I suppose. All these details rolled into it, and he had to kind of nurse his sire and took out favors with his baron. It's a fantastic story, but when he found out that, holy shit, I have a sire, and that separation, he had to make a choice the sire gave him. It's respect who you are and what blood is in your veins, or continue on this anarch path and I'll let you be. And he made his choice. Why that was most pivotal, in that scene, it took so long for him to make a decision, and there were things screaming at him the entire time. Him having humanity for one, his sire having a distinct low level of it, not so much monstrous as just old. He doesn't get it, and the player out of game was very excited because, to quote him several times, he's cursed. I'm probably going to fall apart at some unknown point, and then Nate's going to get cancer of the balls. It's going to happen because we were cursed up one side down the other once this happened, and he loved every minute of it. And he was trying to figure it out because he went from being free, kind of able to pick who his friends are because he's this caitiff anarch in LA, to now having a clan, but feeling like he belonged. And that's the point, right? If I'm a caitiff and I have no one, that's a lonely existence, and it doesn't matter because whenever anybody has to go off to a clan meeting or they have a primogen, I'm still a caitiff and I'm nothing. I still have nothing. And I can't do that. If the Anarch gangs go and pal around and everyone is like, I'm an Anarch gang girl and I'm an Anarch brewer, I'm still just that piece of shit caitiff. I have nowhere to be. And people naturally shunned him from scenes. He always had to walk into a scene. And then people are like, oh yeah, great, it's the guy we feel sorry for, so we'll talk to him. He's on. And that's how he felt. You could see it and we read it. But when his sire came, his whole regime changed. It's like he inherited the keys to the estate that gave him his power and who he was. And it was an awakening. And it was powerful. And that change is so great that he feels, and I hope everyone in this room harasses him and floods him with messages, he feels he can't schedule scenes because he hogs the limelight too much. He truly feels that every time he's up here and we spend any time in a scene with him, it's to literally shun everybody else. Like he doesn't deserve to get to play this character because that's how much he likes it. And that's how much into the scenes he's in. And that's been a powerful thing for me. I've never done that in my storytelling career. I've always gotten people who will play a caitiff but couldn't handle that isolation from everybody else. That's something I work very hard to cultivate because that is exactly the feel you should have. Playing that, or Thin Blood, or anything of the sort where you decide that you're going to pick the flaws that make you an outcast. That's the point. And to see him hold that and then not have that anymore, but then know the journey, that's awesome to me. And it didn't require extreme amounts of killing players or a blood hunt regime or finding a holy relic or killing a big bad. It was just a relationship between sire and chilled. And to add, it's a sire who he has to learn from. These ancient weird rites that he has to go through, and he's still learning. No matter what he does, he realizes he just doesn't know enough. And that's an awesome thing. In fact, it's unique because it's the only sire-child relationship we have in the server.
I hadn't thought of that, but I can't think of another one. I mean, unless you count Zen and Jorgen.
Well, player to player is different.
Right.
And like to explain, and taking nothing from the players of Zen and Jorgen, what I could tell you is it's challenging. When you're new and you're taking on the challenge of playing something really old that now has a chilled, and that chilled is, just a new player. New to the clan, gets idea what he's playing, but has to kind of figure it out. And you're this anachronistic sire who has to have things explained to him. There are a lot of challenges, and it starts with the role play first and getting used to that. Then it's working out how you see one another and what you should know and what she should know and he should know. That's very clunky. It takes a long time for that to run smooth. And so, and unfortunately, right when it started to get smooth, things happen. And your world goes upside down, and that's sort of the nature of the world of darkness. But when you have it to where your sire is capable of giving you a safe environment, an area to be in, and they're a source of wisdom that you can go to and kind of foster whatever type of relationship you want with them. Because just because they're wise and they're taking care of you doesn't mean it's easy. And it doesn't mean they favor you. They may not even like you, but you share the blood. In fact, they made you. And whether they made you out of passion or for a better reason or for a sense of worth, you are theirs. That's a pivotal key point. Everybody who is a vampire, there is someone who owns you. You know, they'll always be more powerful than you. Some in the background have killed them. And it's just how it is.
I just want to do real quick before I forget, since it was brought up, but my Shadowstar and Ulf, they both came to us day one from the previous server where Bob and I were either on staff or role playing. In my case, I was the one doing the role playing, and like they've stayed with us for an entire year. Like to me, that and you know, of course, Nick came from there as well. And Nick, how much experience did you have playing Vampire before like actually playing on the server?
So before playing on this server, I played in a weekly game at Bob's house with Nate and Bob for, I would say, about a year with Vampire, and then a couple other games mixed in the middle. And then we settled in to the Curse of Cain game.
Yeah, and you had like a server, like a role play server for Game of Thrones, and then you know, that shut down or whatever, and so then Shadow and Ulf came with you, and like Bob and I had some role play experience with them beforehand, but I just think it's awesome. Like, here's people that we've met through that, and like a year later, here we still are. You know, like to me, that's just awesome. So, you know, I definitely want to thank you guys. I'm glad, not so much you, Nick, because I knew you before, you know, but for Shadow and Ulf, like, it's awesome to have met you guys, and I'm glad that like we could have this friendship develop and continue to role play, you know, and like for you, Shadow, like actually having met you, like to me that's just crazy. Like it's a wild thing to think of, but yeah, so that's very cool, and I enjoy watching you guys role play together, and I enjoy the scenes that you guys end up in. And
well, thanks for you all for being really good storytellers, and all the other players out there too, because that keeps everything going as well. I feel like I'm spoiled.
Well, definitely, but I feel like, you know, I've watched you through two characters, like you know, come in as I don't know what your experience with this game was beforehand, but you know, I've watched you grow and you know, learn and understand like the nuances, and you know, to me that's very cool. That's very cool to be able to experience that. So anyways, does anybody else have any questions? Because otherwise I think I'm gonna wrap this up. And
was that a duck?
I don't know, man, but it sounded like someone stepped on it.
Sounded like it.
It's a goose. Someone kicked a goose.
Or the goose had a question.
What was your question, Goose?
At least it wasn't Ric Flair.
Woo! Woo! I can't get my voice. I can't get my voice high enough to do it.
I can, but it's way too loud.
Yeah.
So it's a last open shot for closure after a year of play, if you need it.
Yeah, there haven't been very many questions about closure, really, when it comes down to it, surprisingly.
Wait, closure? What?
Yeah,
Hold
like
on. What you mean?
So let me define, right? So let's be more salient here. The question that Nate had posed earlier was that any questions you guys wanted about plot that is not currently ongoing, you need closure to, is what you could ask us about.
Oh, I got one that's extraordinarily selfish, but it's also quick.
I got one too.
Okay, good.
Did Idris have my sire killed or nah?
That's actually innocent, and I will tell you, no, he did not. What happened there is that you were tested, right? As Idris is, and I'll leave it at that. He's not a source of raw, untapped anger. If anything, he's an eternal teacher in a way. But if you prove to be an animal, you would have been put down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yep. I know what you're driving at.
I got a question.
Yes.
What happened to Muhammad?
After
I
Mallory.
believe Mallory was first. Yep.
Oh, I
Sorry.
didn't hear him.
No problem.
Sorry. Okay, so what did y'all motherfuckers do with my trunk sire?
Oh man, I can name that tune in 2 notes, and I bet everyone in this room can.
Wah, wah.
I actually don't. I don't know the answer to that one.
So, truth is that when you're carting around your sire torpid in a trunk, and that you did, and when that gets confiscated by the hierarchy, what I can tell you is that is something that is in play, and I will say if it's not the Camarilla to simply kill for any purpose. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is it's a waste of resources. If you think about it.
Murder isn't actually the go-to for either of the sects when dealing with their own, right? So the Camarilla is not just going to kill someone because they're torpid or whatever. There's probably a lot of basements with a lot of torpid sires. So
It's been alluded to as much in narratives and whatnot as well.
Because I was told Tanner told McQueen that she'd been taken like over to Europe by someone, and I wasn't sure.
Liars, their pants is on fire.
What I will tell you is that is a blessed, and he honored you in letting you know that inside information. It's entirely possible she was, because when you have a torpid sire who served centuries ago, you don't cart them around in the trunk of a car. But little she could do about it. So it kind of stands up to logic, right? Maybe Tanner's correct. Maybe Tanner is enjoying her slice by slice to this very night. And that's sort of the plight she's in, because that's what she was left in. But what I could say is, because it's in play, it makes more sense that the appropriate people were reached to deal with that individual.
right, it's still an ongoing situation.
Okay.
Nick, go ahead.
Oh, mine was easy. Whatever happened to Bishop Muhammad?
Oh, my friend, that's plot.
That's another ongoing plot, my friend. I'm sorry, we cannot divulge that information.
It happened 6 months ago.
It certainly did, and when I could tell you, it's still plot.
Yeah, right. What's 6 months to immortal vampires? Come on.
Well, it's not run by mortal vampires. It's run by very mortal motherfuckers.
That's true. That's true.
You need to check my stats. I am mortal.
You'll have to come back and you'll have to wait for that to be revealed in season 2.
Yes, it is a very, very good story, one way or the other, and I definitely won't ruin it for any Lasombra player. Oh yeah, you are one. That's right.
Yeah, I just thought about that myself.
I think all mine are still plot relevant, so I can't ask them.
Take a shot. You don't know. You don't know unless you ask, guys. That's what this is.
Can I, one quick question, and maybe it's just because it's a little more work that doesn't really apply to the game anymore, but the podcasts that were put out as supplements to this game, the conspiracy theory dude and the all that, those were, I absolutely love those. Is there any chance of those maybe coming back a little bit, maybe even just
Yes.
now and then?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Those were so much fun.
Yeah, that's kind of more on me. With me doing the normal podcasts, and
I liked it and enjoyed it.
Thank you. Doing the normal podcasts and trying to get them on to YouTube, and then doing like the Patreon podcasts. Once we started doing like 4 podcasts or 3 podcasts plus a week, it became a little bit more difficult. And so, yes, we put one out a couple weeks ago. And if I remember correctly, it was something we just released on Patreon. Because I felt like for those of you who are supporting us, you deserve a little bit more that maybe everybody else doesn't get. However, those are especially a little bit more taxing, because like that's like an actual production. But yes, you will see them. I don't have a set schedule, but I'm getting material from the storytelling staff to turn those into something else. So yeah, they're not ending. They're not dead. They're just going to take a little bit longer to work into the schedule.
That is a.
Well,
go ahead, sorry.
I, for one, just want to say how much I appreciate those. It added so much more in terms of, and I hate to use the term because it's kind of cheesy, but the immersion aspect was huge, and it just really helped kind of slide into the world in that time between like getting out of work and starting to play for the night.
Right.
Having that was something that really, in a way, even though it was just auditory, was a very tangible thing to put into the game.
Right. Well, I think
it's appreciated.
I think that what we're gonna end up having to do is we'll probably well, obviously we're gonna have to figure out a way to work it in. Because like I always thought that they were really good, and I know Bob really enjoyed them. It's just been an issue of time. And we're doing like the Path podcast, and we're doing like the Teach Me How stuff, and it was like, well, those are rewards for patrons, and so like those are super important. And so I guess like the multimedia aspect of this game has kind of fallen behind a little bit. That's all on me. It's just,
but, I mean, there's a settling. I mean, you keep saying that, but like you moved, upgraded,
right.
Career shift into what you're into, which is the radio, is the hope, and very good things happening. And so I would like to say, I mean, I cut off Nate deliberately so he stops beating himself. Fact is that we're going to get back to it because we have to, because that's also a Patreon thing that we started. It's not forgotten.
Right.
It's just that you may get it at lengthy intervals because of everything else that we got to give to you guys.
I would say that you should probably expect to see more of those like tangibles start to become a much more regular scenario for you guys. Like you'll be able to see posters that we make. You'll be able to hear those like radio broadcasts that we do. I would say expect like right around after Gen Con. I got a lot of stuff going on, new job stuff, and Gen Con coming up, wedding and the family coming up. So not to fill you all with excuses, but yeah, this is something you can expect to come back for sure.
Well, I hope I'm not overstepping any bounds and speaking for the other folks here, but I think that we all understand that quality takes time and that it is a labor of love, and that you do put a lot of effort into it and want it to be good. So, I don't think anybody here is going to be really upset if it takes a little bit more time in between those broadcasts, because they're such quality that they're like extra added treats. And that's why it's just, kind of a thing that it'll be okay to wait for.
Well, cool. I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah. So
very cool.
Yeah, it means a lot to hear that. So definitely, like I said, you can expect. I'm like a person who's very, like, I'm dedicated to a schedule, right? Like that's why we have a podcast every Friday. We have a podcast. We have Nerd Words, Sunday or Monday. Like I'm very much like let's go, let's do it, let's get it done. So I just have to figure out a way to work it in, and then you'll know. But in the meantime, you'll have them with, somewhat fair regularity.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So slide this in here. Pale asks, how's Mexico City treating My Girl Show? As we know, Show Williams is the niece of Tookie Williams, who was mortal, and a lieutenant for Tookie in South Central. And it was Pale's celebrity tribute. Aza then ended up going her, and she suffered for him. She suffered to protect him and defend him. When he died, it drove. I honestly think Pale was hurt to lose that connection and where it was, but she was honored. She was honored by the Lasombra, in fact, because Pale died taking on Muhammad. Is exactly what happened in a dispute, and the Lasombra honored that sacrifice. They sure as fuck killed them. But they honored what strength it took and the loss of a leader, but they had to also teach a lesson. And in that retaliation in that act, kind of what the Sabbat's about, honestly, is you felt he was an elder that wasn't fulfilling what you wanted done, and you took it to as far as it could go and overextended the grasp a bit. But in Lasombra fashion, being pragmatic, they can't have the back biting him when trying to move forward, and an example was made. But then he did not punish either Tookie or Sho Williams, in fact. So what happened is Sho was definitely taken to Montreal, where she got to learn what Aza was, and she is embraced as a Salubri Anti-Tribute, serving there in her own pack. May come into play later. I'm a big fan of Legacy.
I think the whole storytelling staff is.
Yeah, so let me take away from it. In fact, it's like a requirement.
Yes, there is things still going on with characters that have died almost a year ago now.
Shit, there's stuff going on in this game that involves characters that died fucking 3 or 4 games ago.
True
that. I mean, I think that that's really important, right? Is that you can show a player legacy, even if, you know, they only see it as kind of like a brief head nod, right? Like, you know, someone had a character that died or did something else somewhere else, right? Like, the coolest thing about playing in a game that Bob ran as a player, and that's not to say that this is the same thing, but the coolest thing was when we played in the game 10 years earlier, there were things that we were dealing with now 10 years later. And it was never like something that was overtly talked about, but like you could see like, oh man, that's so-and-so from such and such other thing that happened. And I think that that's cool. I think it's cool to see the things that you do develop in the world realistically. So yeah, it's definitely, I think legacy is very important in this game, and it's important for gamers, right? Just to see like the fruits of your labor, to see like long-term work come to fruition. All right, so we got about 14 minutes or so, so I just want to let everybody know, Bob and I, unless anything changes that's beyond our control, as most of you may already know, Bob and I will be at Gen Con. Will be DJ will be there. Are you going to be there, Jeff?
Yeah, he'll be there.
I'm trying.
He's going to be there. I'm tired of hearing maybe and possibly.
Yeah,
he'll be there.
So positive thinking indicates that the entire staff of Curse of Cain and all of the utility muffins will be at Gen Con. So there's information here on the server for Meetup. As things change, we will continue to add stuff there. So we're definitely looking forward to actually meeting a lot of you in person come Gen Con. And then I will be 95% likely will be at the night in question in November. So if people are going to that, we'll have the opportunity to actually role play together. I'm going to be doing like interviews, like I'm going in an official capacity. I'm going from a business sense. Like I'm going to interview people. I'm going to fucking break this shit down. So if people are planning on going there, hopefully I'll see you there as well. But that's just going to be me. I wouldn't expect anybody to, in June, plan a vacation to Texas in November, unless, you know, they had the extra money to do so. So, yeah, that's where we're going to be to like interact with us in person.
Can I get a request on that?
You can get a request.
I would like to request that we get a Justin Lee Jones broadcast. Kind of like him skulking outside Bohemian Grove.
Justin Lee Smith. I don't know if they're going to let me do that, but, you know, I don't know that they can stop me. So, yeah, I'll see what I can do. I'll definitely, you know, everybody will get like the standard 25 Years of Vampire the Masquerade review. Kind of be like, you know, maybe we'll do it on Nerdwords, whatever, but either way, we'll podcast it. But yeah, I'll definitely give you a Bohemian Grove style retelling of the tale.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, Derek had looks at the last one. So one quick closer question: who the hell is the weird Loa-looking guy who showed up when Mac flipped Jackdaw to the Skinwalkers?
He pops up randomly, and I can't figure a pattern.
I've seen him. I've seen him in more than one scene, and it's the same picture, right? But it's not the picture of the other lower looking guy who I think is Constantine, who was at the Edison. It's a different, weird, lower looking voodoo crazy man. And every time I've seen him, people ran. You know who I'm talking about?
Do you have a picture of him?
I'm looking as we speak, but there's some digging to be done because he didn't. I don't remember a name ever being said, right? But he like appears out of the shadows from time to time.
Describe him.
He's got like this hat from the character pick. I think he's a black guy. He's either got a skull necklace or some kind of skull paint on his face.
Killcrop?
No. It's not Killcrop. It's a different. Like we know who Killcrop is. There's another guy. If I can't place him, never
Do
mind.
we really know who Killcrop is?
Killcrop was described in depth for the spot players.
Do we really know what we really know?
What I could tell you is that as a matter of taste, we tend to not repeat anybody with that much charisma, that much. Every character and NPC we have, we do put a lot of love into so that they're believable, they're breathable. It's something you can have. So odds are, if you've seen too low of guys that look different, I'd draw your suspicions more to the correct than not. It's possible. But why I can't put my finger directly on it is because that is still an ongoing plot. But as I often say, trust your instincts.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Sure. Because for a second I thought he was Albert, but then I realized my crazy was leaking.
I promise you, Albert has never looked like Aloha.
Not a once.
All right.
But do we know that Albert has never looked like a...
This guy.
What I could say is that all descriptions of Albert have been pretty Albert. He's sort of as is.
So you do know who I'm talking about, though. You know that
I absolutely knew who you're talking about.
Okay. All right.
Yes, we are well aware.
I'm exercising that art to slip the jab is what I'm doing.
Cool. As long as I know I'm not crazy.
You're not crazy. And with that keen silence, I think that's it, man.
Cool. Alrighty.
You're the man now, dog.